So we wanted to get some sheep. We weren't able to get sheep, couldn't find any sheep, but what we found on Craigslist were some alpacas.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a lot of people out there who might be scared to try something new. And it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, I'm like a city guy who grew up in an apartment, you know, and now I'm here on 30 acres with a sawmill. In order to make a profit with alpaca farming, you have to do sort of everything. Like, you know, one of those things where we just sort of become, not an expert, but I know my stuff about alpacas. And so, like, we like to sort of share that.
We're a graphic designer.
Yep.
And you came home full time.
Yes.
What was that transition like? So, I'm Olivia, and you're John.
I am John.
And this is Old Reading Farm. You have a really unique farm here, mainly from what I've researched, is because of your alpacas.
Sure,
is that right?
yeah, something
okay.
like that.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you got going on here then.
So we have currently 32 alpacas. We also have 3 emus, 9 peacocks, 100 chickens,
Wow.
something like that. Yeah, we have a lot going on. But so we got started, we had 1.8 acres in our old town, which was Reading, hence the name. We were on Old Reading Road. It all started, my wife wanted chickens, and this was before we were even married. We were just dating, and she asked how handy I was on a scale of 1 to 10 because she needed help building a chicken coop. And I lied and said it was a 7. It was more like a 2. But so, you know, she got started with that, and we went to the Big E a lot, which is the Eastern States Exposition up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we would see the sheep shearing demonstration there every year. And we got interested in sheep, so we wanted to get some sheep. We weren't able to get sheep, couldn't find any sheep, but what we found on Craigslist were some alpacas. So we went to meet the guy. The guy was really nice. He sold us a package of 3 alpacas. We brought them home. I built a barn for them. Now we have 32, and we have just over 30 acres here.
So what made you want sheep, and why were you okay with going to the alpacas then?
Well, so for me, my wife is a crazy person, and she just wants all of the animals at all times. And I, at that time, really just wanted to start building things. Because I've been like really an indoor guy my whole life. You know, even my job, I've been a graphic designer and production manager, web designer for the past 10 years. But recently quit my job.
Okay,
I'm doing this full time now, so that's
Yeah.
exciting. So I just wanted to build something really, so it didn't matter to me what we got. And it was just like, you know, we were always sort of farm adjacent. You know,
Okay.
she had the chickens, we always wanted animals. I mean, she had birds. The birds didn't like me, so we ended up, the birds are, anyway, it doesn't matter. So we got the chickens, and we went to the Big E every year, and we had a really good time, and we would just watch the sheep shearing, and we would just sort of be like, maybe that's something that we can handle. You know,
Okay.
maybe that we can get 2 or 3 sheep, and we can sort of live the farm adjacent life and just have sheep and shear the sheep and maybe do something with the wool. And then when it came that we weren't able to get sheep, we had also seen alpacas there,
Yeah.
and they were pretty friendly. And you know, they're sort of weird looking. They're not your everyday like farm animal. Like everybody has like really seen a cow
Right.
or even like a pig or sheep. Not everybody has seen an alpaca. So that was
Yeah.
sort of interesting, and we like interesting things.
Very cool. But you're not just with the livestock. We're standing in your garden. And this is
Yes.
a pretty good size garden.
This is gigantic.
So
But-
are you guys on like a homestead level then? Are you just basically growing your own food?
We are not, because we're bad at it.
Okay.
So what this is, we have all of these raised beds are currently filled with dahlias.
Oh wow, okay.
And so we're gonna build like a big long squash tunnel between these here and just sort of grow some squash to like sort of look cool. But so these are all dahlias. We have roses and more
wow.
dahlias over there, and then we have some zinnias down at the end. But so we really wanted this to be like part flower farm too. One of the first projects that we did when we bought this place was we cleared some land down over there, and we had the stumps removed. We brought in a ton of really nice soil and compost, and we tried to grow flowers there, but nothing happened. So our compromise to that was cleared some space up here, and we have a sawmill, so I milled the wood to make the raised beds.
Wow.
And now we're doing the dahlia thing.
Why, like, okay, so you wanted to have like a flower, be kind of like a flower farm, but to sell the flowers, or just like be a U-pick, or what was your reasoning for that?
I don't think U-pick was ever but again, my wife leads, she drives the bus.
Okay.
I figure out how to fix the bus on the way there.
Okay. I love that.
And that's sort of just how we work. And so it's like, you know,
Yeah.
she is in like the dahlia community on like Facebook, so she knows all of the stuff. But so basically it came down to, we grew some flowers at our old place, and we would make little bouquets, and we would set them out, because at our old place we had egg-laying chickens. So we would sell the eggs at the end of our driveway. We had like a real pass-through road in front of us, so it was easy to set the eggs out in a cooler, and we would put out 8 dozen eggs at 8 o'clock and they would all be gone by 9. So we did the same with flowers. That went really well. And the thing with dahlias is they grow up, you can cut them and put them in arrangements, and then the tubers grow, and instead of like putting out seeds, dahlias produce tubers, and so they sort of grow and you can divide them and you get more.
Okay.
So then there's additional income in selling those tubers
Okay.
to other either flower farmers or just people who want to grow them. But so
Gotcha.
at the end of the year, we can then dig these all up,
Yeah.
store them, separate them, all that.
So you were an indoor kid most of your life.
Yes.
You said you wanted to get outside. Was there something that happened that you were like, I want to be outdoorsy, I want to do all of these outdoor things and build my things?
I think it was more when I met my wife and when we really started to do married things and like we started to have projects done together. So she was really kind of the driver for that. Maybe it just like wakened something up inside me that I never knew that I really wanted to do, but
Yeah.
that's just sort of how it came about.
I love that. So we're at your alpacas and it looks like
Yes.
you just sheared them. Is it the right term?
Sheared,
like
yep.
you shear a sheep, you shear an
That's
alpaca, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep, so they got shorn on May 3rd, or maybe it was May 10th, I can't remember.
Okay.
One of those, but yeah, so it's recent. So they get shorn in sort of mid-spring or early spring, so they have their shortest coat when it's the hottest
Okay,
weather.
yeah. That makes sense.
So they just get shorn once a year, and some of them are okay with it and some of them hate it. And it's like, so they're really quiet animals.
Yeah.
They don't make a lot of noise. On that day, some of them make a lot of noise, and it's like a terrifying sound.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
But,
They just don't like being handled, or
Yeah.
okay, because they're just not used to it.
well, so they are a prey animal technically, so they don't like being touched, and you can actually, there's a syndrome that males can get when they have too much human contact called berserk male syndrome, where they see humans as other alpacas, and so they try to be the dominant one in that, and it can be really dangerous for people.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's not as much in ladies, and it's like the girls are like just so much better than the boys in every way, but
Not
like,
unlike humans.
right,
at
yeah,
all.
well, sure, yes. And it's just like they're quieter, they're more calm, they fight a lot less, but they're very nice.
That one is adorable.
Yeah, that's Cookie.
Hi, Cookie. You are so cute. I don't know if we saw it on camera, but his little buck, is it a boy or a girl?
All girls up
All
here.
girl, okay. Her little buck teeth are so funny.
So alpacas have a hard palate on the top, on the roof of their mouth, and then they just have 2 teeth on the bottom that sort of jut out.
Gotcha.
And so they can actually clip the grass.
So it's kind of like cows. Cows are
Sure.
like that. Yeah.
So they don't rip it out of the ground. They can actually cut it so that they're not totally destroying it, even though they are doing a good job of destroying this grass. But this is relatively new.
So how do you manage them then? So how much acres do you have here?
30.
You have
Just over
30
30.
acres.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. We're like in town.
Yeah.
We're like,
yes.
like
Nobody
okay.
ever knows that we're back here.
Yeah. Okay. So you got 30 acres back here. It looks like a lot of woods, maybe.
A lot of woods.
Because wait, are they ruminants?
Yeah.
They are ruminants.
Well, so I mean, they eat grass, but they get hay, and so we feed them a
Okay.
lot of hay. So we've been here for just over 3 years, and we've been slowly sort of working our way through it. We bought this place, and it was vacant for 8 years before us.
Oh wow.
And then before that, it was just all woods. So we've been, slowly clearing ourselves as we go, and then as we clear, we sort of open it up. And so they're dry lotted behind us now, but we make sure that they get hay. But it's finally nice in the spring. We can bring them out over here, and we're working on another pasture over there. You can see we're starting on the
yeah.
fence, so
Okay.
hopefully we can like rotate them.
Yeah.
And we have like a new pasture back there that we're working on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we have a lot going on, so
Yeah.
it's hard to get it all going.
I totally feel that. So they get shorn once a year.
Yep.
What do you do with their? Is it what is
fiber, they call
fiber?
it.
Okay. What do
Yep.
you do with their fiber?
So in the past, well, we're not sure exactly what we're going to do with it this year, but in the past we have gotten it processed into both finished products and just yarn. So it makes really nice yarn. It's basically got the same heating qualities as wool.
I've heard really good things about
Yeah.
alpaca clothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my wife makes hats, and those are really nice. So you get the same heat that you get from wool, but it's really soft.
It's not itchy like
Correct.
wool kind of.
Yeah, there's no lanolin. They don't have any lanolin, so it's very soft. And in general, people who are allergic to wool are not allergic to alpaca, which is nice. And I say generally because I feel like I can never say
Of course.
anything with 100% certainty.
Of course.
But so we would used to get it processed, and we would get it at a local mill. There was actually a mill in town that would process it for us, but then she moved, and then we struggled to move real quick to try to get it all done somewhere else, but it's getting like really, really expensive to get it done. And so like the cost of that then has to get passed down into our cost.
Yeah.
And so like this past year we made socks, and I think it cost us like $27 for a pair of socks.
Oh my.
Or maybe that was the gloves, but it was something similar to that.
Wow.
So it's wild. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so there is also something called the New England Alpaca Fiber Pool, which is a conglomerate that just sort of, you can send in your fiber and then they pool it all together, and then they make a ton of different products and you get credits to buy it back. So I think that's probably what we're gonna do this year, just because it's so expensive.
How much, like, I'm thinking in like terms of numbers here. So how much fiber do you get from one alpaca to make like a hat or a pair of socks?
So in general, you get, well, so there's 3 different kinds. So similar to sheep, I think sheep have firsts and seconds.
Right.
So you have the first, which is the blanket, which is what's on their back, which is the finest fiber. It's, you know, not what's they're dragging through the mud and grass all the time.
Yeah.
Then they have seconds, which is what's on their lower legs and generally their neck, and then thirds, which is what's on their like the bottom of their. So in general, they get about 3 to 5 pounds of usable fiber from the blanket, and then it really ranges for the rest of it. But so they make a bunch of different stuff with alpaca fiber, like from rugs to like not cashmere, but like scarves and like really like fine things.
I've seen sweaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally something like that, and then it all depends on what you make. But I know the first year that we did it, the gray one that was just here, her name is Macy. We got her fiber spun into yarn, and I think it was 1,800 yard skeins.
Okay.
Or something like that. So
that's
about
a lot.
1,800. Well, it sounds like a lot, but it takes about like 190 yards to make a hat.
And you had 1,800.
Yeah.
So you can make like 18 hats. Obviously.
No, like 10 hats.
10 hats.
Something
Okay.
like
And
that.
obviously these numbers are just, we're
Yeah,
kind of
off the
pulling them
top of
out.
my
Yeah,
head,
off
yeah.
the top of your head. These are not exact numbers.
Right.
But I ask because if you're talking about how expensive it is to process it, are you selling these things?
Yeah, so that's how we got into chainsaw carving too, is we started doing craft shows. And so at craft shows, it's really beneficial to have a variety of stuff.
Right.
So you want to have hats, you want to have gloves, you want to have socks. It is very expensive. Well, I shouldn't say it's very expensive. It's, in order to make a profit with alpaca farming, you have to do sort of everything.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, and sorry, I was trying to like go into it. So it's a lot to get processed.
Yes.
Your processor went away. Are you you've got the co-op kind of thing.
Yep.
But are you gonna be able to process your own? Like, is that an option that you could do?
Well, so it's funny because my wife, Catherine, just sent me a screenshot from one of the Facebook marketplace with somebody selling like their entire mill setup, and the entire mill setup is $165,000.
Oh my.
And that doesn't include, because so there's basically like very, very, very tiny mini fiber processing equipment you can get.
Yeah.
Then there's like super industrial commercial fiber processing equipment. And then there's one company that does like, for like if we were to start a fiber mill, there's one company that sells that equipment. It's called Belfast Mini Mills. And so that's the used equipment. And they will actually come, and they have a service where you can pay them. They'll go pick up all the mill equipment. They'll like repair it. They'll bring it to you. They'll set you up.
Wow.
But like, so even that is somewhere in the neighborhood of like $20,000. So it's all very expensive.
Wow.
That was something that we thought of because there's 2 homes on this property. There's 2 houses. So one we live in and one we just kind of pretend doesn't exist and we use it for storage. So we were thinking at one point we would maybe start that.
Yeah.
It's a big startup cost.
That is a big startup cost, especially when you have to pass those costs on to then the consumer, which is, it's like that in any business.
Right.
I mean, you have startup costs and you have to pass those on or you can't be successful.
Exactly.
So I assume then that's why you have like we said earlier, a variety of things. So you're still like establishing this farm, right?
Yes.
You've only been here for 3 years. What have been like some of the more difficult parts of figuring out just the farming aspect of things, especially not really coming from a background like that?
Well, honestly, I think the farming aspects have sort of been the easier part.
Okay.
Because like, you know, I can benefit from other people's experience since we live in the age of like YouTube.
Right.
And
There's people like me
Facebook.
doing this.
Yeah, and I mean we started out and we watched like a ton of different channels and learned a lot about everything. And I mean, you can go online and learn about alpacas, and you know, I'm lucky enough now that I can be one of those people. So I think the actual farming part of it was sort of easy. The difficult, not easy, but I had at least had access to knowledge. The hard part was just sort of finding the time, because it's like we just have like there's so much going on. It's like we do an awful lot of stuff. It's hard to prioritize and pick what's important and get it done. Like we've had that fence and those fence posts sticking up for like a month now.
Yeah.
And it's like we have a bunch of craft shows that we're doing, you know, so we have to prioritize that and like making stuff for the shows, and then also doing the actual farming thing.
Yeah.
We also, living in Connecticut, there's a lot of rocks. So I've built every farm building that we've had here, and so I've set also every single fence post basically by myself, sometimes with some help, but mostly now by myself. And even like with the tractor, and I have like an auger, 6 inches down, there's rocks.
Yeah, you get into something like that,
Not fun.
you're not going anywhere.
Not fun. So that actually has been a very difficult part, is just digging fence posts, even like leveling ground. Like we see videos of like people's dahlia fields, and it's like they have like 5 acres of just flat land, and like meanwhile we have like a 30-foot jump from where we just were to like where we are now. That's tough.
Love this build right here.
Thank you.
So I think that goes into more of all of your diversification in your projects.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you have a mill, and I saw one of your, it's definitely worth plugging in. We can plug it in now. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I saw one of your videos that you bought a really big mill. So you're able to mill all of your own lumber, and you're mostly woods, like you said, so you're probably not hurting for timber.
No, not at all. That was one of the things, like when we first moved here, I wanted to get a sawmill, but we didn't have a means of moving the logs. So then once we got a tractor, because it was like, there was one point where we didn't have anything, and we found a tree company to dump wood chips on our property, and we had just like cleared out some space, but it was really kind of whatever, and we were going to plant grass over, so we'll just get some wood chips. And so they brought like 6 trucks.
Oh my.
Which we weren't expecting. And so for anybody out there who's ever done like chip drop or anything like that, and you get one 20-yard truck, and it's a lot, this was 6 of them.
Whew.
And like we were filling like the gorilla carts with shovels like after work, and like moving it around, and I was just like, this is why we need a tractor. So luckily she told me to get the biggest one that we could get. You only get one.
Okay.
And so we got a nice tractor, so that's done great for us. And then once we had the tractor, then it really like made sense to get the sawmill. And it's like, you know, so as we clear the land, we're like making the timber for the fencing that we're gonna put there eventually.
Yeah.
So
I think I love most that you're figuring all of this out like for the first time.
Oh yeah.
You're really a self-starter, and you're really like, I don't know, I want to learn about that, and I'm just going to do it.
Yes.
and figure it out from there. I absolutely, I think that's so cool. I love
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put these eggs
Yes,
down.
sure. Speaking of the chip drop and you like shoveling it after work, you just quit your job full time, you said.
Yes.
So your wife is still working off farm?
So she walks dogs from time to time.
Okay.
So that's where she is now.
Yeah.
So obviously sometimes she's busier than others, but so she's out walking dogs right
That's
now.
awesome. And
Yeah.
then you quit, you were a graphic designer.
Yep.
And you came home full time. What
Yes.
was that transition like?
Terrifying, because I previously worked, and the place that I worked at for like 8 years,
Oh, wow.
and it was an awesome job. I had a really good boss. I got paid really well. I got to work from home.
Oh, wow.
I started working from home in like 2019 or 2018. So it was before like everything hit the fan. So like we were all like off and running with that. So it was already like a really great job. So I went to part-time, I think in August of last year. So I was working half days, because honestly with the chainsaw carving, it was sort of going gangbusters.
So you've got a high demand for that.
Yes. And we kept sort of putting it off, like, oh, let's see how this next set of shows goes. Let's see how this goes. And then eventually it was like, we're never going to be able to make enough stuff to make it happen. And so it just sort of came time. Then it was scary. And now it's like, you know, I saw it like on Instagram all the time, like, oh, I didn't want to work 9 to 5 for somebody else, so I decided to work 24/7, you know, for myself.
I've never seen that, but I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true. Because when you're working for yourself, running your own business, you are working 24/7.
Right.
I mean, if something happens, you got to go right then and there, and that goes double for farming. Like when you have livestock.
For sure.
That's crazy. So you went part-time, and then a couple months ago, So it's currently, we're actually at the end of May. Oh my gosh, May flew by.
Yeah.
We're at the end of May. So that was what, 9 months
Yeah.
of part-time?
Yeah.
And then,
something
or
like that.
6 months maybe? So now that you've been home full time, what do you see the biggest differences? And I say that prefacing, like Joel Salatin talks about things slipping through the cracks. And once he was finally on the farm full time, he was like, oh my gosh, things are actually getting done. Like I feel kind of caught up. Do you feel that same way?
Not currently.
Okay.
But that's because, again, with the chainsaw carving and the shows, so we just booked ourselves solid, and then so that takes a large portion of our time. And so with the chainsaw carving, I do the carving and my wife does the painting. And so she's also busy and she's not here all the time. So I have to carve when she's not here, and then she paints like basically at the end of the day. So that has put a little bit of a stop to like overall progress, but there's definitely been a big jump, because like even just things like the raised beds that we were looking at before, the time it takes to cut the tree down, clean it all up, mill it, get it to size, and then to actually build the raised beds, never mind like taking down those trees, pulling the stumps out by ourselves, grinding the stumps, getting the wood chips down, flattening everything, like that wouldn't have been able to happen if I were still working even part-time.
Let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure.
So you kind of share what you have going on the farm. What was your premise for starting the YouTube channel?
I think the premise was, and I was trying to think about this today just in case you ask that. I think the premise was we wanted to earn some passive income someday.
Okay.
And like, you know, you sort of think of it, and I think anybody who doesn't have a YouTube channel always just sort of thinks that like, oh, you just sort of film what you're doing whenever you do it, and that's it, and it's easy and you're done. But it's like, no, you have to like think about it, you have to plan, you have to prep, you have to actually do the filming, you have to think about the filming while you're doing whatever you're doing, and then at the end of the day when you're all done, then you have to edit all of that stuff. So, and then you realize how dumb you sound half the time, and how often you say and I also realized how bad I was at math in a lot of the times. But so I think the premise was that, because we just thought sort of what we were doing was interesting.
Yeah.
I think our first video was just like a time lapse of us painting our alpaca fence, and then like when we got our alpacas, and then it really just became like a nice community to have too. It was nice because we always wanted to be super upfront with people, and we never wanted to be like, just, you know, click my affiliate link in my description below. Like, granted, we have some like little affiliate links, but like we just didn't want to push stuff that we didn't feel super strong about.
Right.
And, you know, especially now, you know, we feel sort of a responsibility to tell people about alpacas.
Yeah.
Because they're sort of an animal that like people don't really know about. And like even in the farming community, like they're a herd animal. You need to have at least two, because what they do is they take shifts. So like when one's sleeping, the other one's awake. So if you only have one alpaca, that alpaca's never gonna feel like they can sleep, and so they get really stressed out and they tend to die. And so like there's all like little things like that. Like you're not supposed to keep them in with donkeys, because donkeys can kick them and kill them. Goats have a much higher parasite load than what alpacas can handle, and so while a ton of people keep alpacas with goats, like you're really not supposed to. It's not a great idea, and granted, it works. If it works for you, that's great.
Right.
But like you really shouldn't.
Yeah.
And not meaning to get on my like alpaca pedestal here.
Sure.
But it's like, you know, one of those things where we just sort of become not an expert, but I know my stuff about alpacas. And so like we like to sort of share that. And we used to do live streams all the time, and it was nice to just have a community of people that were like-minded and nice.
Yeah.
And in general, like the YouTube creator community is the same way, where like everybody's like really nice and happy to help each other and lift each other up. So that was kind of cool too.
Yeah. I love that that's been your experience, because I completely agree. So we had our YouTube channel when we farmed, and it was so frustrating to me because everybody wants to see the cows getting out and me chasing them. But let's be honest, the cows are out and I'm chasing them, and I don't really want to go get the camera to record all that. I just want my cows back. So it does add like an extra level of stress to kind of what you're doing overall. I love what you said, that you've kind of become like an information hub on alpacas. Like you hadn't planned on getting alpacas.
No.
That wasn't your goal when you set out to get livestock. Other than the things that you said, what are some of the biggest things you've learned about alpacas that you love sharing about?
They generally don't spit at people. Usually if a human gets spit on by an alpaca, it's because you got in the way of an alpaca fight. So these guys, when they're at the hay feeder, there's a little, even though they're women, they're females. There's still a little bit of dominance, and
Right.
you know,
There's a pecking order.
Yeah, well, there's one brown one right there, and it's hard to tell now because they're shorn. Her name is Brownie. Brownie's a big girl. We thought she was pregnant when she first came to us. It turns out she's just,
Now that you say that,
a little
she is
extra.
much bigger than the other ones.
yes, she looked large.
Yeah.
And so when we actually first got them, the day that I finished our first fence up here was the day that my wife brought home 5 alpacas. So it was like I was literally finishing building the gate when she pulled into the driveway with the trailer. But so there is a pecking order with alpacas. Some of them are bigger than others. The breeding alpacas is actually really interesting.
Okay.
So they are,
Go for it.
get into it.
Go
They
for
are
it.
induced ovulators.
Oh.
So that means that they do not have a menstrual cycle. They start ovulating when the male is near to them and makes a sound called an orgle. It's a weird sound.
Okay.
And then it's just, you know, some of them it's love at first sight and some of them it's not. And then the way that you can tell if a female alpaca is pregnant is if you bring that same male back 2 weeks later. If she spits at him, she's pregnant. And that they say that that's more foolproof than ultrasound.
What?
Oh, yeah. it's something-
Okay, let's unpack all of that.
Yeah.
So pigs are kind of the same with ovulation.
Okay.
So it's more like once they stop lactating, then they come into heat.
Okay.
But also the boar has a pheromone that will like
Sure.
bring them into heat. So that's really cool that alpacas do that. But the spitting part,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's like, I'm pregnant, get away from me.
Get away from me, you did your job, I'm over it, I don't need you anymore.
Exactly.
Have all of your girls been pregnant?
No, so actually when we first got those first 5, 2 days after we brought them home, we had a baby lying on the floor of the barn.
Oh no,
So,
I'm
yeah.
guessing that was an accident.
Yeah, so we don't know,
Okay.
but the farm that we got them from didn't know either. They were like, they were getting out of alpacas because they were just in a little bit over their heads. You know, it's
Okay.
easy for that to happen.
Yep, for sure.
And so we were glad that we were able to take them in. And then there was just like this little alpaca born. That was actually Maple. She's somewhere over there. And so what happened was we only wanted girls because you have to keep boys and girls separate because the boys will continue to try to breed the alpacas like to a detriment. So you have to keep them separate, and in general, the further the better because the males are very motivated. So if they're in eyesight, they can jump fences. They generally don't. That's one of the things I love about alpacas is they don't try to escape. They actually feel more comfortable. We have had several times where all of these girls have gotten out and they just sort of running around in a circle like they don't know what to do. So you have to guide them back. And then as soon as they get back in the pasture, they're
They're fine.
totally calm. But anyway, so the baby was a boy. And so since you have to keep boys separate from girls, it was like, well, this is the first baby ever born on this farm. We can't get rid of him. So what we had to do was to get 2 boy alpacas. Once he was ready to leave, which is like 6 to 8 months, something like that, we had to find 2 alpacas that were 6 to 8 months to create his own herd. And then we ended up with more boys somehow. And then we started doing a little bit of breeding. And so I think we have 6 girls that we bred. Our vet is coming out for the yearly checkup in early June, and then we'll have her do some ultrasounds so they have an 11-month gestational period.
Oh wow, that's long.
Yeah, and they don't start to show until like the week before, basically.
Oh my gosh.
Well, 'cause-
Do they have 1 or 2?
1. I think there may have been like 1 instance in the world of a double birth, but I think usually it's bad when that happens.
Okay.
And the babies start walking within like 10 minutes.
Okay.
And again, it's all like evolutionarily, like they're prey animals, so
Right.
like the baby's got to be up and moving as
That's
soon
how
as
cattle
possible.
are.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, cattle are the same way. Wow, that's crazy. But I just really love your willingness to share what you're learning with your community that you're building, you know, through all of your channels. But just, I don't know, it's just really cool seeing them out here.
Thanks. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is, a lot of people ask us, you know, what do you do with alpacas?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like 90% of the time, it's just this. And, you know, even for us, like we've been working so hard to get grass, like, and it's been tough, like the soil here is not good.
Yeah.
So it's been a challenge to even just grow grass. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who can relate to that. And so like the first time we were able to actually get them out onto this grass here was just like, ah. And so it's nice to be able to just see them enjoying the grass. And also for me, it means they'll eat less hay, and so it'll be a little cheaper for us.
Yeah.
But so it's good all around.
Thank you, John, for having me out
No
and
problem.
showing me around. I really love what you're doing. I think that you really bring another level to the mixture between homestead and farmstead. And I say that because I love the diversity.
Thank you.
I think that sometimes people can take diversity to an extreme and it ends up being a hindrance.
Sure.
But here I think it's really working well, and you seem like you're really enjoying being here and doing what you're doing, even in stressful times.
I'm glad that seems
Right?
that way.
Yeah, it does. It really does seem that way. I really can feel that. So I thank you for having me and showing me around.
No problem.
Any links that you want to include, we will put in the description so people can check you
Sure.
out, check those out. Of course, your channel will go right in there. And yeah, just thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. One thing that I did want to say, just related
Sure.
to like the DIY aspect and like bridging between like farmer and homesteaders, and you had mentioned that it's like that I have sort of a take-headedness of like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of people out there who might be scared to try something new. If I can do it, you can do it. Like I'm like a city guy who grew up in an apartment, you know, and now I'm here on 30 acres with a sawmill and, you know, 12 chainsaws and like whatever. And so it's like, just try stuff and do it. And like, if you want to try something new and you're wondering if that can be like maybe profitable for you to do, just try it on a small scale. You know, we started, this whole thing is all because we got one alpaca's fiber turned into 18 skeins of yarn. We sold all 18 within an hour when we put them on Facebook. Now we have 32 of them, you know, emus and peacocks and all sorts of nonsense. So,
Yeah.
but it's like, I really feel that like anybody, you can do anything. I mean, there's a lot of people out there doing really cool stuff.
I love that. I love that. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like we talked about, I think diversity can, and it's probably just my personality, but sometimes it's really easy to get way too into the extreme. And I love the way that John is incorporating a lot of things here, and it keeps him busy, but I really do think it's very, I really do think that he's really enjoying it. Looking at these alpacas really makes me wonder, maybe we could have alpacas one day. I do like to knit when I have 2 seconds to myself. So who knows? Maybe we'll have alpacas one day. I'm not sure. But we still have more farms to see before that. So come along with us. I hope you enjoyed this journey, and we are going to keep on.